Over the weekend, OpenAI's board didn't just look for a new CEO, but actually had discussions with Anthropic about a merger. Welcome back to the AI Breakdown. Today, we continue our coverage of the saga at OpenAI. And I will start off by noting that things have taken a turn for the quiet. It is distinctly less loud and seemingly fast moving than it had been over the past 72 hours or so, which to me suggests that some combination of lawyers and comms professionals got involved. But of course, that doesn't mean there aren't still really important updates to be had, including some very interesting intrigue around the possible outcome of a merger with Anthropic and OpenAI. Now, where we left the story yesterday was that after former Twitch CEO Emmett Shear had been announced as the new CEO of OpenAI, and after Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella had said that Sam and Greg were coming to lead a new division within Microsoft, well, that morning, a group of OpenAI employees said, absolutely not, this is ridiculous. At the time of recording yesterday, something like 500 out of 770 employees at OpenAI had signed a letter saying basically that they had no confidence in the board, that the board had not taken the opportunity to actually explain their actions, and that should they not resign and reinstate Greg and Sam, that they would be leaving to go to Microsoft with those two. Now, it turns out that that very impressive 500 plus out of 770 sort of number was only at 500 because the rest of the team was asleep. By the end of the day yesterday, it was over 745 of 770 employees that had signed the letter. As the information put it, the vast majority of OpenAI employees asked the board to resign. That includes 22 of the other 24 leaders of the company, according to the information's org charts, and one of those was Ian Hathaway, who's a partner at the OpenAI Startup Fund, which is a different legal entity than OpenAI. Now, the other who hadn't signed the letter, Jan Leakey, is a notable absence, given that he's the head of artificial intelligence alignment. However, he also said in a post on X that he thought the OpenAI board should resign as well. So update 1 is that there is near unanimity among OpenAI employees that things should not go down as they went down. The next new bit of information that we got was that Emmett Shear, the former CEO of Twitch, was not necessarily the OpenAI board's first choice to be the new interim CEO of the company. Now, if you missed the detail around why they were looking for another interim CEO, it's because the interim CEO that they had appointed in former CTO Mira Murati had gone against the board and was trying to use her new authority to bring Sam and Greg back. At that point then, the board got very, very quiet and started to go into full recruitment mode, it appears. And once again, the information has dug up who they asked to join before they got to Emmett. One person they asked was Nat Friedman. Nat was the former CEO of GitHub, and he is also a prolific AI investor. The other candidate they asked before Emmett was Alex Wang, who's the co-founder and CEO of Scale AI, who, as you heard about in this morning's brief, just held an AI security summit in the hills in Utah. Both of those two politely declined the offer. That left Emmett Shear, and almost immediately as he had joined, there were challenges. First of all, news outlets started digging up controversial tweets that he had sent in the past around all manners of topics. But beyond that, it was unbelievably clear that he had very little to no support from the employee base. According to people with knowledge of the matter, the vast majority of employees at OpenAI refused to attend an emergency all-hands meeting scheduled with Emmett Shear, and in fact instead responded to the announcement in their Slack channel with an FU emoji. Influential investor Vinod Khosla wrote, "Time for Emmett Shear to resign before he becomes the only employee of OpenAI. Time to DM him, everyone." Now, given that there had been such an outpouring of support from the team at OpenAI, it wasn't surprising to learn that behind the scenes, Sam was still working the channels, and that the deal to move to Microsoft wasn't done. At around 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time yesterday, Altman tweeted, "We have more unity and commitment and focus than ever before. We're going to work together some way or the other, and I'm so excited. One team, one mission." So what is actually going on behind the scenes? Well, according to The Verge, quote, Altman, former President Brockman, and the company's investors are still trying to find a graceful exit for the board, say multiple sources with direct knowledge of the situation. About an hour later, Sam tweeted, "Satya and my top priority remains to ensure OpenAI continues to thrive. We are committed to fully providing continuity of operations to our partners and customers. The OpenAI/Microsoft partnership makes this very doable." However, as The Verge points out, quote, "It's not clear how going to Microsoft with over 700 former OpenAI employees is compatible with ensuring OpenAI continues to thrive, or how that can reasonably be set as a priority for those former employees once they are working at Microsoft." Still reiterating the message, Microsoft CTO Kevin Scott said, "To my partners at OpenAI, we have seen your petition and appreciate your desire potentially to join Sam Altman at Microsoft's new AI research lab. Know that if needed, you have a role at Microsoft that matches your compensation and advances our collective mission. A nice touch both to say it publicly and also to make sure that we're clear that there is matching compensation. Now, maybe the most interesting detail wasn't that they had asked people like Nat Friedman and Scale AI's Alex to come be the CEO before Emmett Shear, but the fact that they had also explored an even more dramatic shift, which would have been a merger with Anthropic. Now, the background of this, of course, is that Anthropic was in many ways a spin-off of OpenAI. It was a group of people who had been at OpenAI who didn't like the way that they were approaching some of the safety issues and guardrails, and so who wanted to start their own lab focused on responsibility. Anthropic is also chock-a-block full of effective altruists, which is why, of course, Sam Bankman-Fried was one of their biggest investors. Now again, while it doesn't seem like there was any real consideration given to this, the fact that they had even discussed it shows just how off the rails things have gotten. These are two arch-rival companies, the two leading startup labs. And frankly, until the board's decision on Friday, Anthropic was in the distinct number 2 position. Now, had they actually pursued this, it would have caused a whole new set of messes, given OpenAI's relationship with Microsoft and Anthropic's relationship with Google and Amazon, but ultimately it was not to be. The one other big interesting thing was that Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella did a round of press. Some of the highlights, as summed up by Krish Castanova, were 1. Nadella said that they have all the IP and legal stuff to succeed with Sam and the team if they join Microsoft. 2, and maybe most significantly, even Satya still didn't know why the board fired Sam Altman. Now, this is wild to comprehend. We're sitting here banging our heads against the wall because the board hasn't been willing to tell the world what happened, but it sounds like they're not even telling the key actors behind the scenes. I talked about this yesterday on a podcast with Dimitri Kofinas that was published on the Hidden Forces podcast with Dimitri Kofinas, but this is just an insane state of affairs. Every time that I've seen someone try to say that we should give the board the benefit of the doubt and that maybe Sam was up to much more than it seemed, I keep coming back to the fact that they haven't been willing to justify their actions. And in the absence of justifying their actions, everyone is going to assume the worst, which in this case is just that it was some petty power struggle, that it wasn't actually about any big safety disagreement at all. They haven't even come out and said something to the effect of, "It's too dangerous to tell you why, so you just have to trust us." They've literally said nothing. Instead, the only thing we've gotten is the big reversal from Ilya, which would seem to suggest that it isn't about some major safety issue, given that one would think that if that was the cause, that he wouldn't have been so willing to flip his position. And so where this leaves us is a continual liminal in between. Forbes editor Alex Conrad tweeted, "Founders working with OpenAI models. How are you feeling right now?" Joe Visani says, "Ripping it out before APIs start failing." Nathan Bynock writes, "Uneasy." Avni writes, "Frustrated that Monday morning isn't about implementing end-of-year plans, but instead running contingency planning. Angry for how this impacts hundreds of incredible people. Sad that all this magic was so carelessly decimated or at least disrupted with seemingly such little thought or explanation." Investor Manal Hassan writes, "Most of my portcos are going to diversify and use a mix of LLMs going forward. From a business risk and fiduciary risk standpoint, this is the best route." Now, if that's the anecdotal part of the story, the evidence-based part of the story is there as well. According to the information, more than 100 OpenAI customers contacted Anthropic over the weekend. Others reached out to Google Cloud and Cohere. And this is the sort of thing that doesn't go away quickly even if Sam does come back. What's more, those companies are taking advantage of the situation. Anthropic announced this morning that Claude 2.1 is live with a new increased 200K context window. Matt Schumer writes, "If you're an OpenAI developer worried about what will happen to your apps if OpenAI goes down, this is a fantastic alternative." And so that's where we are, waiting to see what's next. Kara Swisher summed up, "Think you just have to see some move tonight or by tomorrow by OpenAI Board, who better have some good lawyers and better explanations. Right now, we've heard from neither, and so I guess we just have to wait." That's going to do it for today's AI Breakdown. Appreciate you listening as always, and until next time, peace.